Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another town hall with Dr. Laura Scandera Trombley. My name is Jamie Woody, and I am the Vice President for Student Life, and I am joined by Dr. Trombley and Dean Gonder. She is the Dean of the Faculty, and we will all share some opening comments with you in just a few moments. But before that, I want to, on behalf of all of us, spend just a second and think about our friends in Louisiana and Texas and Arkansas and any other impacted areas by the other Laura in our lives right now, sending good thoughts and well wishes for everyone who is affected. So I want to remind you that we have the Q&A box down at the bottom of the screen where you can post any questions that you might have. But before that, I just want to invite President Trombley to share a few comments, Dean Gonder, and then I will share some comments as well. President Trombley.
Hi there, it's wonderful to see everyone on my staff here that's joined me. And even though I can't see you, I am so glad that you're part of our call this evening. We are now just 12 days away from the start of the fall semester. And I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to no longer being the only person, along with my son, Nelson, living on campus. We want to be joined by students, and we want to see the start of the semester more than you can imagine. We have spent now months preparing for your students to arrive. And I've walked through the academic buildings, and we are absolutely prepared. We are looking at physically distanced classrooms and lots of yellow tape giving everyone directions. I've gone through the residence halls and have been incredibly impressed with the preparations that have been done there. They are an excellent repair and waiting for your students to come. I've also spent, I think, a fair amount of time testing the food in our cafeteria, and I want to particularly recommend the brownies. And we have also now unpacked a great deal of brand new outdoor furniture so that your students can enjoy the beauty of campus. And we've also had a number of faculty express interest in teaching outdoors. I've spent the last several days in conversation with our faculty departments, all on Zoom, of course, and I just want to say I am so impressed by the caliber of our world-class faculty, and I'm so proud that I can call myself a colleague. I am just honored to be part of the faculty on this campus. And I have been hearing about books that have been accepted for publication, books that have been published, papers that have been given. The faculty have not missed a step, despite all of the turmoil of the last several months. And I just want to make sure that I make it clear how prepared our faculty are to welcome your students into their classrooms, whether they are on campus or virtual. They are absolutely ready and prepared and looking forward to the start of the semester. This is an unusual time, and as you well know, we have started a bit later than we normally do. And that has given us the opportunity to observe what is happening on other campuses, and particularly on the campuses of the Associated Colleges of the South Consortium, to which we belong. And we have learned a great deal, and we also have seen some of the unfortunate challenges that other campuses have faced. And the way that I'm thinking about it right now is that our size is our gift. We can be nimble, quick to pivot, make adjustments, and also, just as we've always prized as part of this institution, is we know our students and we understand what their concerns are, what their needs are, and we are here to support them and to make sure that they have the absolutely best Southwestern University experience we can offer this fall. So I am glad to be here with you on behalf of the senior staff and all of the faculty and staff at Southwestern University. We're proud to be part of the community that your students are returning to or entering for the first time. And I will be there along with the senior staff when our students move in to greet you and to thank you. And with that, whoops, my cat has just jumped on my lap. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have for me or for either one of my wonderful, wonderful colleagues here this evening.
I'll take a moment and introduce myself. I am Elisa Gonder. I am the Dean of the Faculty and a Professor of Political Science. And I'll just give you a very, very brief overview of what your student might expect on the academic side. We have about 30% of our courses that will be delivered completely remotely, and the other classes will be delivered in what we are calling a blended approach to instruction. These courses, it will depend on the in-person courses, it will depend on the size of the class. One of the things that we have been doing is physically distancing our classrooms so that all students are 6 feet apart in the classroom and the desks are in a fixed position. For many classes, we've been able to accommodate the full class in the classroom. We'll be holding classes, for example, in ATT theater for the first time, and so in larger spaces, in the ballrooms, in the athletic field house, as well as normal classrooms. For some classes, your students might be on what we're calling an A-B schedule, in that because of the physical distancing in the classroom, Group A might meet on Monday and Group B might meet on Wednesday with activities that they're doing outside of class, project work on the days that they're not in class. Many classes will be meeting every day. So my key advice for students is to check your email frequently. All faculty should be reaching out to you to tell you whether they are teaching in person or remotely. You can find this information on WebAdvisor. If your course says off campus, that means it will be remote instruction. Otherwise, it will list a classroom and a start time. Our start times will be slightly different. We are going to stagger the start and dismissal times. And for 50 and 75-minute classes, those are listed on WebAdvisor, both the start and the finish time. For some of the longer classes or variable classes, the new start time is the time that is listed. For the most part, our classes will be meeting for 1 hour after the start time. Again, your professors will be reaching out to you and letting you know what the start and finish time is, but WebAdvisor, as well as Moodle, our learning management system, will be your friend. In terms of remote learning, it will look really different than it did in the spring. We had to pivot and pivot quickly. Many people didn't even know what Google Meet was. We now are quite familiar with it, and our faculty have been engaging in faculty development since early July to prepare for the variety of modes of instruction. So I think that they are, what you will get will be very different. All faculty who are teaching remotely are asked to be available during the class time for students. What it will look like could differ. It could be that you have a lecture that is what we call synchronous or in real time. Video conferencing, or you could have a discussion, or you might watch a video ahead of time and then have class discussion or problem solving. So the key is your faculty members are going to be reaching out to you. I'm excited to be teaching in person in the fall. I will be teaching a class, Women in Politics, in Europe and Asia, and I have already reached out to my students. Some of them have already logged on to Moodle. So again, check your email frequently, as well as WebAdvisor, to get updates on what your classes will be like in the fall. And I am also happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Reminder, my name is Jamie Woody. I'm the Vice President for Student Life. And I want to reiterate what President Trombley said. We are ready. We have spent the last several months conducting tabletop exercises with many constituents from around the campus.
We created scenarios that they didn't know what the scenarios were in advance. And as we were going through the scenarios, I threw in some curveballs with some facts that weren't included in the scenario, and we processed those in a fantastic sort of way. At the beginning, the very first tabletop, I told the committee that we would meet as many times as we needed to get everyone to a place where they felt comfortable. And by the fourth time we met, I asked if the committee wanted us to have another meeting, and 100% of the heads shook no. They felt ready and prepared, and I think that is just a testament to where we are at this point in time. In another way that we're ready, we have spent the last week beginning virtual training with the RAs, and I know they're on the call right now, so shout out to the RAs. Thank you all for what you're doing. I'm paraphrasing, but one of the RAs today said, so really, we're ready. The only thing we have to work on is physical distancing and wearing masks. And I think that's what I want to impart upon all of us right now. The responsibility that we all have as individuals, holding ourselves accountable, holding each other accountable. It's going to take all of us to do our parts to continue to be here in person. And I cannot tell you the amount of energy I have drawn from those RAs this week. I am ready to conquer the world. They have filled my tank and taken me to the place that I needed to be. So thank you, RAs, for everything. We've also been working on testing for students at this point in time. We sent out a communication last Friday, and we invited all off-campus students to sign up for their testing times. We are at 63% right now of off-campus students having signed up. That's under a week. We are at 63%. I'm calling that fantastic, and knowing that we still have a little bit to go, but our deadline is next Monday at 5 p.m. So we're making some terrific progress on that. Those students who are living on campus are prescribed their testing time that correlates to their move-in time. So they aren't receiving a sign-up, they're just receiving an indication of when they're testing. So all things considered, we are ready. I am so excited, and I cannot wait to entertain any questions that you have. We already have some in the queue, because you all remember where the little Q&A icon is down at the bottom. So let's just jump right in and go for it. President Trombley, with the recent CDC changes in reference to testing asymptomatic individuals, is the university going to follow these updated guidelines or continue to require the test when students arrive to campus plus the random testing?
We will continue to require the test. And in fact, the CDC has backtracked somewhat from the announcement that they made yesterday. I want to err on the side of safety. If there is a mistake there, I want to try and do absolutely everything that the institution can do on behalf of student safety and health. I'll be going in on Monday for my second test, as are all of our faculty and staff. And in fact, we now have created a program for ourselves just to make sure that when your students come on campus, we have a benchmark that is at 0 for all of our students.
Thank you very much. I got my test today, living proof that you can survive it. Next question, is the Cove going to be open for students to use in the fall? And I'm
Yes.
happy to jump. You
Go ahead. Yes, good, because we were there together.
Absolutely. The Cove is going to be open, and President Trombley and I had the opportunity to walk the spaces last week, and everything looks completely ready. It is reminiscent a little bit of some restaurants. There's an area where you'll queue up and you have dots upon which you'll stand, and then you'll enter the servery of the commons and get your food in a way that is touchless and completely safe. The Cove is going to be open, and it's open in 2 different ways. You can place your order in advance through an app that Sodexo, our food vendor, will be launching very soon, or you can actually go and there's a queue space there as well where you can order and get your items hot off the grill. They'll also have the coffee bar open, and they will have to-go items that you can grab and go, just like they have in the past for those of you who have been here. So the Cove will be open and are ready to go. All right, President Trombley, with the increased cost to the families covering room and board during this delay, what is the college doing to address this?
Our fees are going to remain the same, as will our tuition. We have now seen a huge increase in the amount that we are spending on preparations, and we set the tuition and room and board pricing last year, and we're going to remain, depending upon circumstances. If circumstances change greatly over the course of the next several weeks or months, then we may make an adjustment. But at this point in time, we're not planning any.
Thank you. You notice I send all the money questions to you, and I'm willing to take the other ones. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Thank you.
Jamie, how many students are residing in the campus residence halls? Hot off the press, right this minute, we are at 74% of our campus, our student population living on campus. That equates to about 867. And you'll recall we've made a real concerted effort to invite students who are required to live on campus to entertain the option of moving off, especially if they are studying remotely. It makes sense for them perhaps to live at home or somewhere off campus. One caveat I want to share is a little student rumor that I'm starting to pick up on, which is that some students have chosen to try to move off campus to try to have a little bit more freedom, if you will. And I want to remind all of us what I opened with. The accountability and responsibility is on all of us. So if you are living off campus, we absolutely support you and chose to de-densify our campus and be very liberal with our off-campus allotment for exceptions to our housing requirement. But we did that in good faith. And I hope that the rumors I'm hearing are completely false and untrue, and that just because you're living off campus, that doesn't mean you are going to ignore the protocols that we have in place to keep our entire community safe. So all of us need to do our parts to make this work out. President Trombley, what would the criteria be to close the school down?
What we're doing is we are creating a holistic listing of what we're calling tipping points. And that would include positivity rates on campus, positivity rates in the community, the number of beds that we have available for isolation purposes, the number of beds available in the local hospital. We're now finalizing that template, and that is going to be posted on the university website at the beginning of next week, and it will be transparent. We also are going to be transparent about the rates that we have on campus. Those numbers will be shared. And we have been relying upon what other liberal arts institutions who are part of our cohort group are doing in terms of their tipping points, as well as our most immediate consortium, the Associated Colleges of the South. We've learned a great deal, and we are putting that all into the template that will be posted very soon for everyone to see.
And you actually got part of the next question, but we need to respond to the please share your plans for contact tracing portion of the next question.
Why don't you go ahead and address that, Jamie, because we actually have now a system in place for contact tracing that is going to be working through our health center on campus. And I'm going to be sending a letter to all of you on Monday talking about the app that we want your students to download so they can take care of themselves and also list any symptoms that they might have so we can immediately reach out.
As President Trombley indicated, we will have a daily screening that we are encouraging everyone on campus to check in with themselves, answer those questions that we're all asked whenever we go anywhere in the world. And so we'll be answering those questions on the daily, and that responsibility will fall on all of us. So in terms of contact tracing, we have identified 2 staff people. We're calling them care coordinators, and these individuals will become the person for the individuals who potentially have contracted or been exposed to the virus. If a student comes onto the radar with positivity or with the possibility of positivity, our care coordinators will reach out to those students and have about a 30-minute interview with them. Lots of questions. And in those questions, they're going to find out with whom they have had close contact in the last period of time, depending on where they are in their journey of the virus. We will also be then reaching out to those individuals with whom they have come in contact, and that is called contact tracing. But one thing I want to point out is close contact is defined very specifically. So it has to be within 6 feet, and it has to be for an extended period of time, like 15 minutes or more. So there is a chance that someone in a classroom may test positive. That does not automatically imply that the entire class becomes close contacts, because our classrooms are physically distanced and people will be wearing masks. However, if it's a situation where maybe they're in a lab and they're a little more close to each other for a period of time, then that person would become a close contact. So there's a very specific definition defining what close contacts are, and then those care coordinators will be doing contact tracing and reaching out to everyone who has a need to know what's going on at that time. Dean Gonder, how will study rooms work for the students? We'll start out with the library and then I can speak about residence halls.
Yes, so our library hours will be 7:30 to 10 p.m. And that is to allow for cleaning over the evening. We have several study rooms and they mostly with physical distancing will hold 1 to 2 students and they're reservable for 1 hour at a time. There are also seating available for students in the library, over 120 seats at any time in various spaces. We have also explored making spaces for commuters and for students who are taking remote courses during the day. So some classrooms during the day will be open for those purposes, and we'll be sharing that information with students and RAs and others.
We've also developed a lot of different areas on campus that might not necessarily have been a study space in the past, but you can consider them that now. For example, in the campus center, we have moved some of the furniture from the lounge, which is where we'll be queuing up to go into the commons. And we moved that, sprinkled that furniture around the building. So you have opportunities for these pods, either individual or two, spaced appropriately, where you can find different places to study. We also have the residential lounges that are going to be cleaned very frequently by facilities. So that's another place where students can go to study as well. I have heard a rumor that the dining hall will be closed over the weekend. Now, I doubt that that's true. It makes no sense, and the source is not that reliable, but I still figured I should check to make sure. Your source is not reliable. The dining hall is open on the weekends. I think the hours are slightly amended on the weekend because our students don't generally get up at 7:30 or 8 on the weekends for breakfast, but there is meal service through the commons during the weekends. We've seen in the news that some campuses have had problems with students ignoring social distancing and mask guidelines in off-campus or on-campus parties and social events leading to outbreaks of COVID. Has SU communicated to students consequences to violating the SU COVID safety guidelines? Yes, we have. We will continue to do so. We are speaking about that individual accountability and active bystander. So if we do see someone who is not following a protocol, we are asking everyone on campus to step up and address that behavior. We are advertising a pirate pledge that we want the entire community to sign, and it outlines the protocols and procedures that we expect people to follow. Then if we do have instances where people are blatantly ignoring the policies and procedures we have in place, the safety and welfare of the entire campus is going to trump that individual's desire to not wear their mask or whatever. So we will have swift and firm action should any of those situations arise. President Trombley and I, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But also just to tag along, one of the things that we are all reading about these days are the incidents where students are not acting in a caring way, either in terms of their own personal health or in regards to others. What we don't see in the news are the institutions where actually students do care and they are acting in leadership ways and they are demonstrating that they are following the safety protocols. That doesn't make news. And my faith, frankly, is in our students. And I spoke with our resident assistants and I find them inspiring, caring, and very concerned that everyone understands the importance of what we are about to do, and that students now have an opportunity to demonstrate how much they care about others, which is one of our core values, and how much they care about, frankly, their own personal safety. So I have always placed all of my confidence in students, and I think that Southwestern students are going to rise and meet that challenge. And if we do find that some simply cannot get along with the program or understand or appreciate it, then we will step in. But I'm really hoping that that is not the case, that we see this as a moment when the community comes together, where we support ourselves, and that we want to move forward and continue our educational mission this semester.
I love that answer. That was beautiful. What happens if someone in your in-person academic class tests positive for COVID? Does the entire class have to quarantine? I think I might have just addressed that. The answer is no. It'll depend on close contacts and how we're, what kind of close contact those individuals are having with each other. Where will the COVID testing take place once we arrive back on campus? It is going to be in the Robertson Center, which is our large gym. There'll be a pre-screening area that'll happen out in the foyer area. And then once you enter into the Robertson Center, there will be 5 different staging areas set up. We're going to have curtains around them, much like a doctor's office, and you will go into those little rooms, if you will, and do your screening and answer the questions. And this is also a clinical visit. So not only will you have the swab, but then you are actually going to be speaking with a medical personnel who's going to ask you questions and check your heart rate and your blood pressure and do some vitals. So it's a really great opportunity to just have that baseline check done for all of us. With physical activities such as jogging, track, etc., will we need to wear a mask while we're exercising? If so, what are the precautions taken so students don't develop a breathing issue while they're exercising? Anyone want that?
Well, we have 2 kinds of masks now. We have masks that we are giving to all students, actually 2 masks per student when they arrive. And athletics also has an athletic mask that they are going to make available for all of our student athletes. I've tested both of them. And I ride my bike to my office every day, and it is much, much easier to breathe when I'm using the athletic mask when I'm riding my bicycle. I also use the regular mask when I'm walking to campus early in the morning. I also think that these are conversations that our student athletes need to have with their coaches.
Thank you for that. This is a really great question. What new lessons were learned from observing other schools resuming on-campus instruction recently?
That small is stronger. This is absolutely, you can just see the ratio of students when you compare it to success in managing the safety and health situation on campus. Large systems, and those are the systems, those are the institutions that have been in the news. When you're talking about student massing 10,000, 20, 30,000, it is extremely difficult to try and work with students or anyone else in terms of their behavior. And also when you have a very large open campus. This is where we're seeing the smaller institutions, liberal arts institutions in particular, managing through this crisis extremely well. We also learned from our consortium schools who started earlier than we did is that you cannot over communicate right now, you cannot over message, and you cannot over prepare. And that has really helped us as we are thinking through literally, not hundreds, honestly, I think we're up to thousands of decisions that we have had to make in order to prepare appropriately and thoroughly for this. I was saying to my son the other night, everything has changed, absolutely everything. When you enter a building, when you are going to greet someone, when you are going to find a quiet place to study, everything has had to be re-examined, thought about very strategically, and then we have had to create an entirely different way of imagining what a physically distanced campus is like. And we have seen a lot of that kind of thinking and a lot of those challenges taking place around us. And we all have colleagues also in other institutions across the country. And so there has been a great deal of information exchange and learning from what we are seeing around us. And everything depends, I think, at this point on how you start that semester and how well tested your students are when they start, and also the kind of expectations that you can set in place at the start of the school year.
Thank you. Should we have to move home in the middle of the semester? How would that work?
Let's hope that we don't all have to move home in the middle of the semester, first of all. That is probably my greatest desire, is that no one is going to have to move anywhere. What we would do is we would create a very calm and collected plan of action. We would make sure that students were well informed in advance, and we would also absolutely at the same moment make sure that all of our parents are informed at the same time. We have also learned lessons from what we saw happen on campus last year during the spring, and there are some things that we would continue to do in terms of our preparation. There are some things that we would change. But at this point, we're still formulating the plan. If we all have to go home, what that would look like. And when we have that, that will be communicated, posted on our website, and it would happen in a collective way.
Thank you. Will students be able to get a flu shot on campus? The answer is yes. We will have flu clinics. We always have flu clinics, but we are going to have intensified flu clinics this coming year, and the students will be able to get those through health services, and a lot more information will come out on that. Would someone, I think this is probably President Trombley, would someone please speak to the thinking behind having asymptomatic tests 2 separate times so close together?
Well, first, as of 2 days ago, this was part of the CDC guidelines. Then yesterday it changed, and today it seems to have changed back. What I want to do is try and make this campus absolutely as safe as I possibly can. And in that regard, that is why, unlike some other institutions, we are asking that everyone be tested when prior to, first of all, faculty and staff prior to the arrival of students on campus, students being tested before they arrive on campus, and then students tested, because there will be some days in between the testing and arrival on campus having that second test. So we can establish a benchmark, and also if we need to move in and isolate students, we can immediately take care of that and address it from the very start. Everything that we have learned has told us that that is the most effective way to actually continue to have classes on campus.
What happens if our test results don't make it in on time? And unfortunately, if you are living on campus, you will not be able to move into your residential space if we do not have your first round of negative test results. So you will need to go get a test result before you can come on campus, and that will need to happen immediately. If you have to get a hotel room or go back home, I'm sorry, but that is what we have to do. Again, the welfare of the entire campus is what we have to keep our eye on at this point in time. Will the COVID test on campus be a nasal swab or a throat swab?
As far as I understand it, it will be a nasal swab.
That is correct.
Oh, I'm glad I got that right.
Very similar to the one I had today. Do students need to make an appointment to test upon arrival? If you are living off campus, you have received an email from Joe Watkins. It went out last Friday. We'll be sending reminders to you. And that is how you sign up if you're an off-campus student. If you are an on-campus student, your time has been assigned to you, correlating to your move-in time. And if you need more information on that, contact the Residence Life Office and they can remind you. Dean Gonder, 2 of my daughter's classes were originally scheduled to meet 3 hours per week. Now they only meet for 2 hours per week. How will professors be able to teach their content in a shorter time frame, particularly since these are 4 credit hours, class hours, and the expectation is that students are receiving instruction for 3 hours per week?
Great. So our course credit is about in-class time and out-of-class time. So if we have less in-class time, then which we will in the fall for our in-person classes, then professors were asked to create out-of-class time activities in order to supplement that, and that will vary by professor. So as I said, I am teaching in the fall, and I have not cut one thing. I have not cut a reading. I have not cut an assignment. We're still going to be able to do those things. What I did do is shift some of what we might have done in class to out of class. So in my learning management system in Moodle, I now have a weekly forum where the students will be discussing something live. I'll be monitoring that discussion. Normally that discussion would have happened maybe in the last 15 minutes of my 75-minute class that I couldn't hold. So faculty have been asked to imagine and create more out-of-class activities. That might be video conferencing discussions with students doing project work out of class. That could be more homework assignments or more written assignments. I have created discussion questions for all of my readings that students will be asked to do some of that work ahead of time. So you will see a supplement in that out-of-class work to make up for the in-class work. But we are responsible to our accreditation agency, and our our faculty are being asked to provide my office an explanation for how they are supplementing their in-class time with out-of-class time.
Thank you, Dean Gonder. What percentage of students elected to stay home and take online classes, especially first-year students?
I don't know the exact percent. Last week we were at 132 students who had requested to be remote. I don't know how that breaks across the various.
The last information I heard from our director of housing was that under 5% of the first year class have chosen to request an exemption to live off. So you might be able to make some assumptions based on that. How will I be able to follow the COVID policies on the Pirate Pledge if I work at places like HEB? So I think what you'll want to think about is the protocols that we have in place, and I'm certain that HEB has some protocols in place as well. So you'll want to make sure you're following not only your employer's protocols, but also the protocols that we have at Southwestern. Masks, physically distanced, physically distanced. I think also what I want to point out is that if you are in quarantine or in isolation on campus, you will not be able to leave campus to go work. And that is not only to keep our campus safe, but that's also to keep Georgetown residents or wherever you work, keep those people safe as well. So that's something you'll want to think about as the semester continues. Are we required to use CareNow for on-campus testing if there's no discount provided for students?
That's an excellent question. I'm not quite sure what to make of that.
CareNow is the vendor that we are using on campus, and they have assured us that because the testing on campus is required as part of your attendance, and with the knowledge that a doctor is prescribing the tests and requiring it, according to CareNow, they think that this follows the CARES Act and that there shouldn't be any insurance problems associated therewith. If something happens, there is no exchange of cash on day of. Everything will be billed, and there'll be two pieces to the billing. One will be for the doctor's visit because you are seeing a clinician, and the other will, and that doctor's visit will likely be a copay, what you would pay if you're going to an urgent care or whatever. And then the other is for the actual test. And I'm hearing ballpark around $100, but it does depend on your insurance. So CareNow is encouraging you to reach out and talk to your insurance provider and know that if something does happen, the billing will come, and then there is an opportunity to work with members of the university staff on that, to apply for emergency funding if it poses a financial hardship, etc. Okay, considering what's been happening at a few colleges around the country, what's the worst case scenario you all have anticipated, and how have you planned to deal with it?
The worst case scenario is that we would have a huge, this is my version of the worst case scenario, is that we would have a huge outbreak on campus in terms of very large positivity rates. And of course, there's a big difference between testing positive and becoming sick. So a huge outbreak in positivity rates, and then having many instances of people actually succumbing and becoming ill with COVID. That would be absolutely, I think, the worst case scenario, is that we would see very high infection rate, and we would also see a very high illness rate. That is the worst case scenario. And people would become, I don't need to go on and on about how awful it could be. I think all you have to do is just look at some of the press and media out there, and you can imagine how bad it would be. And what we would have to do at that point is what we did during the spring semester, is we would need to immediately make sure that people were removed from campus and that we would no longer be here together. That would be the worst case scenario.
Okay, that was heavy. Where are the quarantine rooms located if a student who lives on campus tests positive during the semester and is not able to go home? So quarantine and isolation are two different things. Quarantine happens if you have potentially been exposed to someone who has the virus, and isolation happens when you have tested positive and have the virus. So quarantine and isolation, we are encouraging the students to go home when they're able. or leave campus. And if they are not able, quarantining, that means you maybe have been exposed to someone. You have not tested positive, you have been exposed. That will happen in your currently assigned residential space. A care coordinator is still going to reach out with you and check in on you and see how you're doing. The housing staff is also going to check in on you. We will be making sure that you have your food, access to food, etc. Isolation spaces are primarily located in the Lord Center apartment areas and the Dorothy Lord Center apartment areas to get that individual into a space where they can have their own room, their own restroom, and isolate the symptoms. There are some cases where we have identified spaces in other buildings that we will use as backups to our backup, but the goal is to focus on Lord Center and DLC so people can have individual rooms. What will the guidelines for students who want to use the fitness center and library be?
For the library, there will be hand sanitizing stations. There will also be materials to clean surfaces before and after use, similar to what you would do in the gym. And the furniture has been physically distanced, 6 feet apart, and many more things are touchless there, or plexiglass has been installed. But mostly it would be like navigating sort of any public space right now in your hometown.
Very similar with the Robertson Center, the fitness center. The space will not open until I think it's the second week, maybe third week of classes. And that is to give the chance for us to get the campus stabilized and get everything organized and then be able to go into the fitness center. Facilities has a cleaning schedule worked out. They're partnering with athletics very closely. We have cleaning stations there, but then they've also built in rotations to get in and clean things that people are touching more high touch than other areas. So we have a plan for that. How is the COVID test administered? How deeply in the nose is it swabbed to prevent false negatives? Well, as she who had it today, I will tell you that it looks about like a Q-tip. So it's about 3 inches long. One end has the little cotton nubbin, and then the rest of it is just the stick. And I would say that whole thing potentially went up my nose. And it's a relatively gentle swab. I would say it almost tickles in a weird sort of way. It almost feels like you're about to have to sneeze, but painless, handled it. You're going to be fine. President Trombley, will there be random testing on campus throughout the semester?
That's one of the things that we're exploring right now, that we would be doing randomized testing of approximately 10 people a day. We're hearing that this would enable us to get a fairly good sense of what the positivity rate might be. So we are now talking with St. David's to see if how this could work, so that not only would we be able to do the testing, but we would get the results back very quickly. This has been recommended to us, and this is something that we're going to do our best to implement.
Dean Gonder, will the library and study rooms be open like before, or will it be open with limited capacity and other limitations?
It won't be exactly like before. So now all study spaces will be reservable for 1 hour increments, and the space is 1 to 2 students. The 1 hour came about for health and safety reasons, especially if there are 2 students in the study room. That's what we're also limiting our classroom spaces. But a student can move from the study room to another place in the library, or even reserve a different study room at any point.
If my student's roommate has deferred, will she still have suite mates? Yes. I can't imagine a situation where she wouldn't. She will probably not get a roommate based on the fact that we're working to de-densify. So if the roommate has gone, she'll probably continue to be in that room by herself, but she will have suite mates. The students are not supposed to go visit each other in their residential spaces. How and who will prevent this? Well, my hope is that the individual student will prevent it, because we're explaining the rules and the expectations, and we hope everyone will be following them. If by chance they cannot fight their individual urge, I also hope that other members of our community will step up to them and remind them of the expectations. Based on everything that we are doing, we have to have that individual accountability and individual responsibility. So it is the rule. The rule is there for a reason, which is to keep the entire campus safe. Does social distancing in the residence hall include students having private rooms, and will students have to pay the difference? The social distancing will apply in the residential spaces. If I'm in my room and I want to talk with Elisa, hopefully we're going to meet out in the hall and have a conversation, or we're going to go down to a common area, a lounge, because we know those spaces are cleaned more frequently. If I start dropping into a bunch of different people's rooms, then I'm potentially contaminating those rooms, and then we're going to have a whole issue with contact tracing and exposure to the virus. So we're really asking everyone to basically interact as though someone is positive, so we can really start changing that culture and shifting that culture in terms of how we interact with each other. It is different, and that is just the way that it is. Will you have to pay for a private room if your roommate leaves? No, that is not your responsibility. You'll continue to pay your rate. We do ask that you don't then take over the entire room, because you are paying for your portion of the room, and that's just good stewardship. What are the implications for students who feel strongly about church attendance? Will this be a violation? We are not monitoring individual activity. We are asking each individual to be responsible for their own actions. If someone is going to a public place, we're asking them to think about the protocols and procedures we have in place, lift those up, put them in their pocket, and take them with them. So we want them to continue physical social distancing wherever they go, wear a mask, and be as safe as possible. How will SUPD be enforcing physical distancing and masking? They have gotten so much experience over this summer. Individuals have come to campus and not been wearing masks. We have signs everywhere that ask people to wear masks. So SUPD, there's no one more prepared to talk about wearing masks than SUPD is. But again, broken record here. We want individuals to be responsible for their own actions and not have to rely on SUPD to enforce policies that we should all be embracing. Will there be a dorm set aside for possible quarantine? And we talked about quarantine. Quarantine is going to happen in your individual room. Isolation will happen in particular spaces. What will the athletes be permitted to do in terms of conditioning and use of athletic facilities?
I believe that this is something that our athletic director is working out with all of our coaches right now. And in the last conversation that I had with Glenn and Jamie, we are planning to continue to do workouts and physical training throughout the fall semester. So I would suggest that you start communicating with your coach, and your coach will be able to tell you just what they have planned.
The new app, will it be tracking my location, and how are you going to trace contacts? It will not be tracking your location. It is going to be asking you to do a daily health check, and that is really the extent of it at this point in time. Contact tracing is going to happen through our care coordinators that will reach out to individuals that need to be contacted. What is the protocol for parents visiting students living on campus? We are limiting the number of visitors to campus. We are trying to keep our campus as contained as possible. We aren't having guest lectures come in. We aren't having guest performers come in. We aren't having members of the Sun City community come and have lunch on Saturdays and Sundays, which they love to do. So we are really trying to do everything we can to control the amount of access to campus to keep everyone safe. So if you are coming to visit your student, or students, if your parents are coming to visit you, I hope you will identify spaces where you can do that in a safe way, outside, perhaps meet somewhere else, but they should not be coming into the residential spaces. Some of these are so hard for me to say, I'm sorry. If a student is tested positive but has no symptoms, will they be required to quarantine? And how will they get their necessary items out of their room if they're required to quarantine? So quarantine is going to happen in your space, but if you've tested positive, then you will be moved to an isolation room if you are not able to go off campus. We will identify that care coordinator is going to talk with you. We are making sure that you get access to your room for about 30 minutes so you can get whatever items that you need to take with you. We're even thinking about encouraging students to have a just-in-case bag. So have a few things already assembled. So in that moment, if you have to, you already have things together and you don't have to think about it. You also don't have to think about taking bedding and pots and pans. We are going to have those kind of things in the isolation rooms already. We'll have some water there. We are going to make sure that you get your food delivered to you. So we have those kind of things worked out, but let's just hope that's just a plan we don't have to put in action. What will the hours of the campus center be? I believe we are looking at a normal hours. The Cove will still be open till midnight, and then I think we'll lock the campus center at 1 in the morning, and I think we're opening it at 7:30 in the morning. Are you asking people who are in long-term relationships to be physically distanced at all times since students cannot visit one another's rooms? I feel like we should get back to some money questions. Let's ask some money questions. Yes, we are asking you to, your closest contacts are going to be the people with whom you live. And those are people that you can go to the commons with, that you can share time outside of your room with. In terms of your relationship, you all should not be visiting each other in each other's spaces. You will have to be creative in terms of visiting each other in the commons, date night in the commons, date night at the Cove. We will all have to work through this together, but at this point in time, I'm not trying to ruin your relationship, but we are trying to keep the campus safe. We talked about that. Will masks be required in the common spaces of the residence halls, such as lobbies? Yes. The only space where you cannot wear a mask is if you are in an individual office or in your individual room. And the reason is because when you go down to the lounge, other people are going to be there. That's not your private space. While it is being cleaned more frequently, it is not your individual space. So only when you're in your individual space do you not have to wear a mask. Will the academic buildings be open for students to study outside of class times?
The academic buildings will be open from 7:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. So they also will be closing at 10 for extensive cleaning. We will have some spaces. For example, the Mood Atrium has been turned into a space for commuter students or remote students or a study space, but these are only available until 10 p.m. We just have to have time to clean the buildings in a way that we didn't have to do in the past.
For students who commute, will testing be required more frequently?
What we're thinking at this point is it may well be that we might have greater representation of commuter students who take part in the randomized testing.
Campus police, what changes are being made, if any? I don't think that there are any changes that you would notice. You will see that they are masked all the time, and we do, I think that their golf cart, they've installed some plexiglass on the golf cart and even in their vehicles. Should they be giving students rides from point A to point B, everyone will be safe in the vehicle. Otherwise, I don't think there are any extensive changes that would surprise any of you. Will the Cove be open to study and hang out in? What about pool tables in the study rooms? No, the Cove is open only for picking up food. The tables that are generally in the area have been moved with the Q dots that I talked about earlier. And the pool tables have been pushed up against the wall, so there's no social time in the Cove.
You'll also find that there will now be much more furniture outdoors, including tables and chairs where students can sit.
Thank you for that. How confident is professional staff to students remembering all of its close contacts? Yeah, I think that that's something we're all going to have to work on, being more deliberate in our daily actions and with whom are we engaging. The easy part is in classrooms. Dean Gondar, do you want to talk about what's happening with seating chart?
Yes, so all of our classroom spaces, as I mentioned, will have fixed furniture, and we will also have a seating chart in those classrooms. So we'll know who was in what desk in each classroom. Your faculty members will be reaching out to you and asking if you have any special needs, like needing to sit closer to the front of the room. Some professors might change that seating chart during the semester just to mix things up in terms of who you're sitting by. But that chart will then be posted on Moodle. And if we have questions because of a positive case, that information will be available, so we're able to know who might have been sitting in that desk in the class before and the class after, for example.
Thank you. Will case numbers of students who test positive be made public and updated on a regular basis?
Yes.
Individual names won't be shared, but numbers will be
Well, no.
shared, absolutely.
Nah, we won't be naming any names. No, sorry.
Are parents allowed to accompany a student to their COVID testing? No, we want to make sure that the only people in that space are students who are being tested and they have filled out the pre-screening document, so we will know if they're showing up with any symptoms whatsoever. Are the athletic masks only available to student athletes? Can they be made available or purchased for non-athletes who just want to exercise?
We can explore that. I don't see why that might not be a possibility.
Will swimming classes take place as normal? FRAs? I don't know that we have an answer to that. That's something we're going to have to check on. We do have your name, so we will check on that and get back with you as soon as we figure that out. If students are outside socially distancing, will they be required to wear masks?
Everybody wears a mask when they're outside all the time.
More questions about the athletics masks. What are they made of? I don't know that we have that information. I've seen a lot of studies that net gaiters and thinner masks made for athletics are not effective. Correct. Gaiter masks are one of the masks that we are not approving to wear on campus. So you can bring your homemade masks or those that you've purchased, but it can't be a bandana and it can't be gaiter masks. Is the university addressing how to improve race relationships and build community on campus?
Yes, in fact, I've already received 2 letters from diversity groups on campus, and they have shared their concerns with me, and I have been in conversation with some of the individuals who've reached out already. And also what we're doing now is we're creating some answers to questions and concerns that I will be sending to those groups next week. And one of the planning exercises that we're going to be doing this year is we're going to be creating a 5-year plan that will be approved by the campus community and the Board of Trustees at the end of this year. And as part of that planning process, we're going to be reaching out to all of our constituencies on campus, asking for their ideas and their priorities that can be included as part of this plan. And clearly diversity and inclusion will be part of the planning process.
Thank you for that. I appreciate all of the COVID-19 protocols in place. Can you ensure, given all the recent happenings over the summer, that our campus continues to be a safe place to attend?
If I didn't think that it was a safe place, we would not be having this conversation. We have done everything that we possibly can, and we have been increasing all of the efforts as more information is known about how to sanitize, about physical distancing, about people meeting in groups. It has been a challenge because often we will have information that changes on now a daily basis, and it has changed on a weekly basis throughout the summer. But we are keeping up with what we determine as being the best protocols, and we are implementing them. So we have learned certainly how to pivot very quickly, how to be nimble, and we think that we are in a great position right now to ensure. We cannot guarantee that everything is going to go perfectly, but we have made a very, very strong plan, and our intention is that we are going to carry it through, and we're going to be successful. What we need is everyone's cooperation and everyone to understand that they are a key component of the planning that we've put into place.
We are out of time. That is a beautiful place to end, but I do want to invite President Trombley or Dean Gonder to share any last comments.
Dean Gonder?
All I have to say is we're so excited for you to come back to campus. We can't wait to see the students. We had a few students attend our first faculty meeting and give the teaching and advising awards to the winners this year. And it just filled us with energy. We figured out what had been missing over the summer as we had been planning, have been planning to get the campus ready. So we are so excited to see the students, and even though it will be different, we are teacher scholars who are here because we get our joy from interacting with the students and mentoring them, having really great intellectual discussions with them, and just watching them grow. And we're so excited that everyone is coming back.
I absolutely support what my colleagues have been saying to you this evening. And once again, I am looking forward to the start of the semester. This is the start of my year. I'm a first-year student along with any of your first-year students. For our returning students, you all know more about this institution than I do, and I am your student. And so I want to hear from you. I intend to keep open office hours throughout the year. I have a space where we can be physically distanced for our conversations. And you will see me on move-in day. And so parents, I'll be there to help. And it is going to be a challenge in many ways. It will also be rewarding. And what we are here to do is to experience the joy of learning together. And I am very, very glad first to be here and grateful to be part of this community. So we will see you in the very near future, and all of you take care and welcome once again to Southwestern University.
Thank you all so much. We've gotten through over half of the questions. We will make sure and post questions to the FAQs that are on the COVID testing site on the SU webpage, so check back there. Otherwise, I echo my colleagues. We are so excited. 1 week from tonight, we will have students living in the residence halls. Can't wait. Thank you all so much. Be safe, be well, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.